Okay, so, Jack, you're a good boy.
So today we're going to be discussing what we've been doing with Molly so far,
Okay.
and then also some things that you can do to continue to practice with her in the future.
Okay.
First of all, I wanted to compliment you on how you have a total constant awareness of what kind of triggers cause her reactivity or contribute to her reactivity, and you're so sensitive to her needs, both emotionally and physically. And she's a high energy dog, so it takes a lot to address those needs. But you do an awesome job. And I also think that part of her barking may be channeling some of that extra energy that she has.
Okay.
So when you address her needs like that, it helps in that way too, to just bring those levels down a little bit. I also want to say though that even though Molly seems like she's a completely different dog than when we started, she's still kind of that fearful, nervous shitter that we discussed, you described to me when we first met.
Yes, she is still that dog.
But she's employing different coping mechanisms, and that's making a huge difference. And it's important to understand, though, that even though she may be expressing her outward reaction differently, she still may be having reactions on the inside. And your policy of confrontation avoidance is still a good strategy to keep using. So I wouldn't abandon that just because you see her reactions are different. I do want to mention that one time while we were in the lobby, there were these 3 men in hats that were passing by. And, you know, she's got a large men in hats thing, and she was fine, she wasn't barking, but as the 3rd man passed through the lobby, I could see just slightly her paws were trembling, ever so slightly, but it just indicates that even though she's not engaging in that reaction of barking, she's still having some feelings on the inside where she's not completely comfortable with the situation.
Okay, that's good to know.
At the same time, you can't ban all the men in hats from the premises or all the barking dogs from the premises. You know, some triggers just can't be avoided. She also has sound sensitivity, so there's sound triggers that contribute to that as well. But the sight sound sensitivity is natural for a dog to respond that way. It goes with the fight or flight response, where back in the day, if there was sudden movement or noises, you had to prepare yourself because it could be lunch or it could mean that you're going to be lunch. So you want to be kind of have that reaction and get ready to do what you need to do. But today we have more non-threatening situations that are causing her activity. And for those situations, we've been using the trigger look, where when she sees a trigger or something or hears a sound, she looks back at you so that she re-engages, you feed her treats, and you keep it moving.
Okay.
Because keeping it moving is creating distance from that thing that's scaring her. And when you're doing the walking, she doesn't have to do as much talking, and she can just take the high road and not have to respond. Plus, it automatically makes her look away from the trigger and focus on you, which keeps her from focusing on the trigger. I also like to incorporate the happy voice when we do that and go, oh, what fun. We love men in hats, barking dogs, loud noises, you know, fill in the blank. They're so much fun. We also practice U-turns for situations that require immediate evasive action, like you're coming down the hall and there's another dog that you know she's going to be reactive to. The best thing is just to turn around, change directions. But it's good to practice U-turns at random times as well, so that when you make the U-turn, it's not an indication that this is a time where we're going to try and avoid a confrontation. It's just something we do when we're out on the walk. It's a fun little game. You know, oh, it's U-turn for no reason at all. It's also great because sometimes Molly gets excited and she starts pulling, I notice, and it's a good way to get her back into position, U-turn her without having to tug on the leash. And because you're changing direction, she's now behind you and having to catch up with you instead of pulling ahead of you. Also, I'm really glad that you recognize how she's not the kind of dog that's going to be the dog that sits at the sidewalk cafe on Chestnut Street or goes down to the village for a nice, comfortable walk. She's just a sensitive girl. And I like how you don't try and make her something that she's not. You accept who she is, and you understand that we're all unique and special, and we all have, you know, certain things that we need understanding. I think it speaks to you as a person, too. Just your kindness and your sensitivity to dogs and to people, and a strong sense of compassion that, you know, you care about her and you want her to be comfortable instead of trying to make her be the kind of dog that's going to be uncomfortable but it's going to make you have more fun going to the sidewalk cafe with this dog that's having a reaction inside. What else? Oh, but I do notice too when I'm walking her in quieter neighborhoods like your neighborhood, or I've taken her for a walk in my neighborhood, and she's the perfect dog in those situations.
She's so good when there's nothing there.
in low pressure environments, she does awesome, and so it's good that you keep taking her to those low pressure environments so she doesn't have to get her stress levels up. But I do notice that she's kind of a sensitive girl. She's got a low threshold for frustration, and sometimes when one or more triggers start stacking up, then her anxiety levels become very heightened. And then it doesn't take much for her to start having that reaction. It's almost like the sky is falling reaction.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, oh, oh. So it's good that you avoid the trigger stacking by not putting her in those situations that make her vulnerable. But when her energy needs are met, and when she's focused, and when triggers are avoided, she's really good about taking on a single trigger and not having such a strong effect with it. Like the other day when we were coming back from a training session, and there were dogs barking at her in the dog park, but she was focused and she had her energy needs met. And then when we came back inside, there was a gentleman in the lobby, and he was filling out a job application, and he just happened to be a large man with a hat, and
They always have hats.
I guess so. What is that? Good practice for Molly, though. But she didn't have a response then. It's like she didn't even notice what was going on because she was so focused and because she was just having a good time. So little things didn't really bother her in the same way that they might have if her triggers were stacked up in the same situation. In addition, we also changed her walking gear over the no-pull harness, and I think that yielded immediate results. And even Becky had said that as well, that it was easier to walk her after that. So that helped. We also practiced Park It, the Park It game, which I showed you before. I'll show you
She's good
again.
at Park It.
She is awesome at the Park It game. And I think it was great that we got to practice in the parking lot too, where she got exposed to some of those sounds and things like that. But at the same time, there was a distance between them, so she was exposed to them at lower levels, so she didn't go over threshold. But still got that sense of having to have situations occur, and she has to practice just being calm in those situations and not reacting. And that's also where we practice the trigger, like, oh, what fun, sirens, lawnmowers, motorcycles, we love them all. But I think that really improved her life skills too as well.
She's better now.
Yeah,
She's calmer. She's happier.
She is happier. She is happier. And you keep her happy. You maintain that happiness for her. So that's important. But I do want to make a note that you don't want to use Park It when she's in a high pressure situation. Where
So, like,
if there's a trigger or if she's nervous, you don't want to park it because that's prolonging her exposure to that stressor. You just want to keep it moving. You know, like I said, you do the walking so she doesn't have to do the talking. Get her out of there.
It's like a U-turn.
And yeah, just keep it moving. And then when you get to a place where she starts to feel more comfortable, then you can continue to park it and things like that. Also, I think you're great at just gauging her feelings and her reactions in general. So you know, even when she's at very low stress levels, you can see it building. And I think that's amazing. I really think you should be a trainer in that way because you have such great dog sense in noticing.
I love them.
You know, what could be a potential trigger and also how they're reacting to those potential triggers as well. And that's true for all of your dogs. You're great with them. So, and then also we got Molly to roll over, which was a bonus. That was a real crowd pleaser.
That's a light goal for me.
I think for Spike as well. So I think Spike said that's more important than if she can walk well.
Yeah,
Just
no, we
teach her to roll over.
don't care about that. We'll walk her off leash.
So that was great too. But other than that, I think she's about ready for the handover.
Okay.
Do you have any questions? Or
I think you've been so great through all of our questions this whole time. I'm probably out of them.
Well,
But
likewise.
thank you.
You have been awesome.
My dogs love you.
Practicing. I love
They're
your
just so
dogs, your
happy, and
family.
you're not frustrated with them, even with their special needs.
No, we
I
all
just
deserve
appreciate that.
understanding, right? We
You
all
understand
have
them,
special
that's what it
needs,
is.
and we're all unique, and we can't all be the same. Otherwise, that would be really boring.
No, then why would you have multiple dogs?
Good question, and I do, and you do too. So,
I have too many dogs.
oh, can there be too many dogs? Okay, maybe.
We're fast approaching that answer.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. I know Molly's at home today with your dad, so we're going to do the demo on another day,
Okay.
but we'll catch up with you on that one. Other than that, it's just been such a pleasure. I
Thank
really
you
have
so
appreciated just being around your family, your dogs, and everything. It's been such a blessing to me. I can't even tell you.
We're so happy to have had you.
Oh, thank you. And Jack, you're
And this
such
is
a
Jack.
cutie.